Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Class 1A podcast. And this episode is incredibly special because we are live over in the Jasco Games Discord server right now, doing a stage for the very first time ever. We have a bunch of awesome people in the audience and super excited to talk about everything that happened in My Hero Academia Season 5, doing a full wrap-up, including announcing our Plus Ultra winners, other awards throughout the episode, favorite arcs, moments, and so much more. So I hope you guys cannot wait to go along with us for that journey. But for those of you that do not know, my name is Andrew Nimsgren, or you may know me better as Advert, the big business hero, and I'll let both of my co-hosts introduce themselves today.
Go ahead, Dylan.
And of course, I am Dylan, aka Fanfic, the shipping hero.
Yeah, and my name is James Graham. I am known as Apothecary, the patch-up hero.
Perfect. And we've been doing this podcast for a little over 2 years. We go anything from doing random episode recaps or all of Season 5 and Season 4 we have. But we've also done fan fiction episodes. We've done lore videos. And we've done a ton of other stuff as well. So we do a bunch of content over there. Dylan will be posting those links in there. But if you do want to go over and keep up to date with everything else we do, you can find us on YouTube, Twitter, podcasting platforms, and so much more. So any support that you guys kind of go and show over there is always appreciated. And leaving a 5-star review for the Astro Podcast on Apple Podcasts is a huge deal with helping other people find it, because obviously today we get to do this live stage, but for helping other people find us, it's always helpful for those reviews. But I guess with that, we move into the first thing, the biggest thing that I've been so excited to talk about all season. So for a lot of people today, we have been doing an award kind of throughout the entire season called the Plus Ultra Award. Pretty much each and every episode at the end of the recap, we go and award a character. Each one of us get to pick a character that went beyond and went Plus Ultra for that episode, and we have tallied up the votes. So rather it's been through the joint trading arc all the way up to My Villain Academia. At the end of episode, 3 characters get nominated each and every time. And now we are going to be breaking down kind of who actually won it all, and then going through a kind of a couple little fun notes that are surprising that when we were kind of doing the wrap up here. But I mean, I guess I don't have much of a drum roll. I don't have any sound effects because we're just kind of in the Discord stage right now. But for all of Season 5, between the 3 of us, we are actually tied on it. So the top 2 characters that were tied, we'll kind of break down the tiebreaker afterwards, was Bakugo and Shigaraki. Both were tied in votes by a landslide. Third place, everything else was super far away.
Yeah.
I talked about that. But Bakugo and Shigaraki, I mean, these 2 characters, without a doubt, stood out in all Season 5. You guys both agree with that?
100%.
Easily.
Yeah.
So we had to actually come down. It came down to the very last episode of the season for that tie to happen. So we had to go to Twitter. We did on Instagram. We did a couple of different platforms and put votes out there to let the actual audience decide who win Plus Ultra, because we couldn't decide over 25 different episodes. And the winner was Shigaraki. I mean,
Yeah.
going from, Season 4, Season 3, pretty much all the way up to the beginning of Season 5, the League of Villains were more or less a joke, I don't want to say, but didn't get much limelight, to now the leader being the person that we thought was pretty much the main character of the season is mind-blowing to me, and I think no one else deserves it more than him.
Yeah, I mean, Shigaraki just had like so many amazing moments, and like, I mean, obviously, like half of the season was like completely like dedicated to him, like getting his own origin stuff there. But I don't know, it's just incredible. I've said this like a ton during our our recaps leading up to this. But like these are like villains that we love, right? Like we already love them before this, and like we just love them even more at this point. So cool.
Yeah, it's like it really is like the ultimate glow up story. Like, I mean, like Shigaraki was introduced to us as like, you know, a villain, but like, I mean, like, you know, he seemed bad. Like, I mean, I think he was a good intro villain for a lot of people. But to see him go from this, like, you know, like video game obsessed, like weird, I don't know, like, you know, the hands on the face and stuff like that. You never really knew what it was all about, right? You just kind of took it at like face value to turn into what he becomes. This king, this leader of an army. The guy has lieutenants. Like, he is like, you can't get any better. You can't get better than that. It's incredible. And they did it in such a good condensed time that it didn't feel rushed either. You know what I mean? Like, it was the perfect balance of like, we have a story to tell in 5 episodes. Boom, here it is.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the actual arcs in My Villain Academia. I already kind of see in chat that people, throughout the entire season, the main theme has been what is going on with My Villain Academia? Why did the arcs move around? What are final thoughts on that? We'll talk about that, but I agree. Shigaraki had a standout season, and I think going forward, he's even going to be a more amazing character and again, like I said, no one deserves it better, but man, was Bakugo close. So like I said,
was
it was
so
a tie.
close.
It came down to audience voting, and even the audience voting, we had a couple hundred votes. It came down to one single vote to break the tiebreaker. So even everyone else agreed that it wasn't very. I mean, both of them were the main characters of it. And I think, speaking of main characters, a fun fact to point out is Deku didn't get a single vote this entire season. He did not feel like he was the main kind of most plus ultra moment throughout any episode in My Hero Academia season 5, which I almost think is awesome. Obviously, he had amazing moments with Black Whip and so much more, but the fact that so many other characters had the chance to shine is such a cool thing to me, and showing that having an expanded cast can still lead on for the for an amazing season.
Yeah, I know. I definitely loved it because like even like you're talking about, like even though he had his really great moments, all the best parts about those moments were him playing off of the rest of the class. Like the Black Whip moment with Uraraka showing up. Like I don't know, that was like a better like Uraraka moment than a Deku moment for me, just because of that interaction.
Yeah, it wasn't even that too. Like it was like Shinzo too. Like a ton of characters were able to show up on these moments that I think normally would have been given to Deku, right? Like he really got it's a weird season. It was a weird season for that, but I was happy with it. It was a nice change.
Yeah,
and I think that helped with at least the Deku point is he got a new power, which is amazing, but it also kind of brought him back down because that's all he was focusing on. So he'd been back to kind of being a beginning Quirk user, so he didn't have opportunity to stand out. But now he's back up to the point where he's pretty much as powerful as ever again. But I think we actually need to talk about second place right now, which is Bakugo. And I literally have an award later on this season, which was the best Bakugo moment because of how great he was throughout the entire season, from joint training to Endeavor to even the last episode of the season. I mean, Bakugo, wasn't really sold on Bakugo for a while now. After reading the manga and not being caught up on the anime, Bakugo is one of my favorite characters, and season 5 obviously did him the best ever.
Yeah, I mean, he just got like so many amazing moments, like just from like fighting, like having really amazing fights, growing as a character, and also being like the comedy relief of this entire season. Like, find someone who can do all of it, all the things in one package here.
Yeah, get yourself a man who does it all.
He had us laughing during Endeavor, like the Endeavor Agency arc episodes at dinner. Joint training. He had us kind of blown away with how he worked with the team. And then even the last episode, just his interaction with Deku and All Might are always top tier. So again, everything Bakugo did this episode, the season was amazing. I wanted to give it to him, but I truly believe Shigaraki deserved it more. And we'll talk about that coming up.
Yeah, it was. I believe you were actually like our tiebreaker on the last episode, Andrew. Like when amongst the three of us, at least, that it was like myself, I picked Shigaraki, Dylan picked Bakugo, and like you got stuck in the middle, right? Like,
yeah. So that's been amazing. And then, like I said, third place and beyond was so much farther. I think Endeavor somehow ended up in third with only 5 votes, which is not many throughout the entire season. Then everyone else was like 3, 4, a couple with 0. So I mean, these two characters stood out in season 5 and were the real ones. So I guess kind of moving into that, unless there's anything else with Pulse Ultra either one of you guys want to talk about? No? Perfect.
Good.
So let's move into the arcs. We had 3 huge arcs this season, which was Joint and Training arc, Endeavor Agency arc, and My Villain Academia. I think we talk through the arcs a little bit and then go back to the arc switching controversy, what we thought about how the season was laid out, because obviously that's been a bigger topic of the season than I feel like the actual season was. So let's start with Joint Training. It's been months now since we watched it. Well, what did we think about that for kicking off season 5?
I loved it. I actually really loved Joint Training because it highlighted like Horikoshi's ability to like write these secondary characters. Because like when 1B shows up, right, they're just a bunch of like random characters, so to speak, that Horikoshi drew in the background. Didn't really have any plan for them. But when we actually circle back to them and we see their names, their personalities, and all their quirks, they feel like they were written out from like off the start. They feel like they were just written all the way back then. And like Horikoshi doesn't think like that far ahead, but like he's so good at just like creating these characters on the spot like that.
Yeah, not only that too. Like I mean, we saw some of the best animation from Bones, right? Like you know what I mean? Like that studio produces good stuff, and like Joint Training Arc did a great job of like bringing that to light and reminding us like how good this studio is. And yeah, just to kind of like build on what Dylan was saying, like I mean these characters that you you know, you always like, oh, you know, like what's that guy's deal? Like, you know, you do see a lot of Class 1B throughout the seasons, but you never really get to see it focused on them. This was the first time you actually got to see like a ton of their quirks being put to use and like going toe to toe with 1A, like the clear class that, you know, has been exposed to more nonsense, to more disasters, all this stuff. 1B is just there grinding, you know what I mean? And like, you know, they take matches, right? They cause draws. These guys are still like, they're top notch, right?
Yeah, and again, I love getting to see so many more quirks, and Dylan's mentioned that like just some of the matchups felt like they were made specifically for this joint training arc. But even something, just someone said it right in chat, right as I was about to bring it up, I felt like it was too long. I even said this as it was going on, but I felt like some fights dragged on just a little longer than I wanted, and I wanted the overall arc to be a little bit more condensed. Every moment that I was watching it felt amazing. Every fighting moment felt great, but somehow it just felt like it could have been shortened just a little bit, and it would have been even better. I think it went on for, 8, 9 episodes? I mean, you bump that down to 6 episodes, 7 episodes. I mean, I think just that condensity makes it a little better, but that's my only issue with the entire arc. The matchups were great. The animation was great. The character moments between Class 1A, Class 1B, Bakugo, Deku, everyone you wanted got a moment, but it still just felt a little too long for me.
So I think it was too long for me when we were actually going through and watching it. I think mostly because like we knew what was coming next. We knew like My Villain Academia was coming next, and so we were really hyped about that. I actually think it might be okay-ish in terms of like length if I would have binged through it. Like if I go back now, because I'm probably going to rewatch this season for the dub, and when I do, I'll kind of judge it there to see if like it's like binging through it is okay. But at least like the weekly did feel like it went on for a really long time.
Yeah, waiting another week to see the last couple of minutes of a fight, even though everything happens in the last couple of minutes, still having to wait like, oh, you get the entire setup, and the next week is just like an actual 5-minute fight stretched out over 20 minutes. Is this the one thing that kind of irked me a little times? I agree. I think binging through it will be so much better because then you just get through all that back to back. You just watch that one big watch and then you move on to other things. I feel like it's such a better way to do it. So I agree. I think it's one of those arcs where you go back and watch it again will be better the second time rather than the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I might be like the unpopular opinion here, but I did want more of the other class. Like I wanted more of Class 1B. Like I do agree that, you know, we knew My Villain Academia was coming, and like we were kind of like, okay, when we get into it, then we had the big arc shuffle and all that stuff. But seeing characters, especially Monoma, like I was like, if anybody goes back and listens to the episodes, I was one of the biggest Monoma stans. Like I changed my Twitter account. He is a great character. But it sucked because like some of the Class 1B that I was really interested in, like, you know, we got to find out who else was in on recommendation. We got to see some of these guys with the more niche quirks. Like I love to see that, right? So it sucked that it had to end, but I do see both sides. Like I was happy with the length at least.
So I actually think I know where like that feeling of it dragging on too long really comes from. I think it's the flashbacks. I'm going to be honest. I think it's the flashbacks. 100%. Like you have these like really intense moments and they're constantly doing flashbacks. I think that's what makes it feel like it's going on longer than it really is, because thinking back, like, as you were saying that, like, yeah, of course, I actually wanted a lot more of 1B. I want to see more stuff with them. I actually don't mind if it's dragging on a little bit. I just don't want all the flashbacks.
I do agree, actually. Yeah, that, and I think they spent 3, and they also, the recaps felt longer too, because I get it's fights, but because they're stretching fights between 2 weeks, that the first 3 minutes of the next episode will be recapping what happened in the previous episode, which could have just been going on to the next fight, which I also felt like kind of was an issue. When it's constant combat, it's going to be harder to have those recaps because you want to kind of cover everything all at once. So
yeah, it's like I get the need to kind of like, I don't know, man. Like it might be the one gripe I've had with My Hero recently is the flashbacks. That is it. That is the only thing that they've been doing that I've been like, man, like do we really need that? Like I feel like we're getting more. It's like that's how they're doing their filler, I guess, right?
But
like,
generally, most people don't do a weekly podcast on it, and might actually need reminders of things that happened a season or 2 ago. Because I know a lot of us rewatch it a ton. But I mean, I understand our irkiness with it, and I think anyone that's hardcore isn't going to like flashbacks. But for my girlfriend that watched season 5 live with me for the first time ever, she caught up during that. She's like, oh, I totally forgot about that. Or like, oh, that's super cool.
Yeah.
That's a cool moment to kind of go back and look at it. So we're on the hardcore side of it. I think the casual side that watches it and then doesn't think about it again till the next season's dub comes out would really enjoy that. So that's just because of how hardcore we are. That's the only reason we don't like the flashback, because the content's good. I think they still went on a little long even with that in mind. But overall, yeah, it's just kind of a hard thing to kind of balance out.
Yeah, we're not filthy casuals here. That's not our thing.
So let's move into the Endeavor Agency arc, kind of away from joint training. So right after that, we had all these amazing fights, and then pretty much it's okay. Everyone go back to your work studies and get stronger. And obviously, we saw Todoroki, Bakugo, and Deku, probably one of the best 3 combinations you can kind of see in My Hero Academia, at least one of my favorites. Go and work with Endeavor. And while it was a shorter arc, a couple of really cool moments there. The family dinner was fantastic. I mean, what did you guys think about the overall arc? And then, did the pacing feel right coming out of the joint training arc?
I think it's weird with these like transitionary kind of arcs of where they're super short and it's more of like setup and whatnot. It's really hard to judge them on the same level as these really big arcs that have been going on for a long time, and there's a lot of meat to them. But what I think was really good about this arc was that it like sets up framing for the world, right? So you're setting up Deku on how he's actually going to like learn all these quirks and get better at them through like working with Endeavor. But it also sets up the rest of the class for like just like quote unquote justifying their now skill up, right? Of where we see them at the end of the season and they have all these new moves and they learn new stuff. Like this is the setting up so that we're just getting a stronger class overall. And I think it's weird to do this, and it's not flashy, it's not sexy, but it's something that like you kind of need to do to justify the story and justify these characters getting better over time. And it's just a clean way to do it.
Yeah, I can definitely get on board with that. My biggest the big thing I took away from it was the Endeavor character development. I think this was so necessary. He needed some attention, especially because of how he left the last season, him becoming the number 1 hero. Like you need to develop that character's personality and his history and everything like that, right? So I'm glad we got a ton of fleshing out during this arc, right? It definitely wasn't my favorite out of the 3. Like it definitely didn't jump off the page for me. But I mean, like you got to see the ramifications of his actions, and like I thought that was so crucial to this show, that you can't just let this character who is so flawed, like not have any screen time and see the aftermath of like what those actions caused, right?
Yeah, I like how they don't like justify it either, and things aren't wrapped up neatly with Endeavor. Of like he did really shitty things, and like his family like doesn't like really like him now, and they're gonna be mad at him, and they leave on that note basically of like, yeah, you're a bad dad, you suck, dude, and that's it. Because like that's kind of a realistic thing like in that scenario. I'm glad that they didn't like brush it under like the rug or anything of like, oh yeah, Endeavor's trying, everyone, he's a good guy now, let's all like him. It's like, no, he still sucks. He's trying to get better, but he still sucks because he did bad things.
Yeah, and I think that was, if it would have been trying to wrap it up cleanly here, like, oh yeah, I mean, it was clear that he reached a turning point in that relationship, but it's not like they just jumped all the way to the end, which is where it could have been an issue. Because obviously, yes, they don't touch on how shitty of a person Endeavor is really up until this point, but we kind of known it. No one's really liked him up to this point, and this is obviously the beginning of a very, very, very slow kind of redemption arc, and hopefully he does end up there. But at the end of this, the whole point of this was like kind of turning a point, reconnecting with his family and growing closer, and him and Natsu had a really good moment after the fight towards the end of the arc. But then he goes back home and just moves out. Like he was talking about not running away from his feelings, but then he literally goes home and says, I'm just going to leave. I know we disagree on this heavily, James.
Don't get me started, man.
I thought that was weird that that's running away. I get that he kind of learned that it was important for him to be away from his family because his family isn't ready to be around him. But I feel like it's better than just moving away. I don't know. How the rap arc ended up wasn't my favorite.
It's atonement, man. It's atonement. He recognizes that he cannot fix the damage he has done, so he tries to do what he can. He builds them a house closer to their mother. He removes himself from the situation and does what he can from afar. And I think that is so much more of a human development. I think that is so much more down to that is much more believable than accepting an apology or like them trying to get over it. People inherently are just shitty sometimes, and you do things that are like unredeemable. this is the best thing he can get to it. Like, and like, I get, like, I felt for the dude by the end of it, but like, he's past the point of redemption. He's just doing what he can. So that's, I don't know. I was very satisfied with the ending.
Yeah, I mean, I think that does make a lot of sense because like this is at the point of where it separates a little bit of like him trying to get forgiveness, which is inherently a really selfish thing for him to do, and him like kind of separating himself from that and just going, I'm going to do anything I can help my family at this point, whether or not they forgive me. I'm just going to do it. And I think that's like another part of that like redemption arc. Like we said, we don't think he's going to get fully redeemed because like he did bad things. Like he can't undo the bad things, but at least he can like do things to help his family out from here.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, I think all the points you're making, James, I know you kind of came back and kind of countered the point as well. And like, I don't disagree with you. It just wasn't what I wanted to see there, but I agree. I think the arc was super necessary. I love keeping up the Todorokis as much as the next person. And the family dinner was fantastic. I mean, the moments there, Bakugo had a moment, kind of learning more about Toya, which we really still know nothing about, and seeing where that develops into season 6. Obviously, they made way too big of a deal of it here not to talk about it in the upcoming seasons and what really happened. So I love getting the teasers for what's next for keeping up with the Todorokis. I love seeing some growth for Endeavor, Natsu, all the characters. Even Todoroki had some good growth here as well. And then Bakugo and Deku just being along for the ride was super fun all around. So it was a good arc, but I agree, wasn't my favorite of the season by far, but it was very much needed. But any last kind of moments on the Todoroki arc? I'm on the Endeavor arc.
I just like the Hawk stuff, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I like Hogs being like a spy, like sneaking around, like given like all these like clues or whatever to Endeavor. I actually really did like that. I guess it's the main plot, but I guess it was like the B plot of the Endeavor agency arc.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really loved it.
The A plot, B plot switches a lot during this entire
Yeah,
season,
oh my
kind of
God.
going back and forth between what's important in each individual episode. But that leaves us with one last arc, My Villain Academia. And I know there was so much worry coming into this. I think I even put out a couple tweets that I was a little on edge about it because I went back and reread the manga chapters and just how excited I was for it. But I think along, at least with us three, it wasn't perfect, but damn was it good. Seeing some of these moments live animated made it worth it despite shifting around the schedule and all that. My Villain Academia blew it out of the water. I loved it, and it was probably as good as it could have been with how things ended up.
Yeah, like there is like some issues I have with the adaptation on like the stuff that they cut out with Spinner and like kind of the lead up to that whole thing on like how like poor the League of Villains really was, and kind of making that a good solid point going in there. Even with all that, like I don't know, the second that we had like the Toga episode, she touches her hands together and just drops everyone from the sky, like instantly there I was like, all right, we're in it. We're in My Villain Academia, and it rules. It's so awesome.
Yep. Like if you go back to like the best moments of My Hero Academia, that's going to be in there. Sadman's Parade is going to be in there.
Yeah.
The Shigaraki versus Redestro is going to be in there. Like there are so many moments in there that forever will be considered probably in the top 15, top 20 moments of all of My Hero Academia. And that is mind-blowing, even with its imperfections, that they're still that good. So again, all three of the Quirk Awakening moments were amazing. Learning more about Shigaraki, I loved. Seeing Toga growth, which is one of my favorite characters that never gets enough light, was awesome. Sadman's Parade was funny but terrifying at the same time. It is what I wanted from My Villain Academia. So I'm happy.
Yeah, no, it really, I think it like for what I think it blew the expectation, like what the expectation had become out of the water. I think it did a really good job of like circumventing that and being like, no, this is still a really good arc. Yeah, I am bummed about the Spinner stuff because they really did set up Spinner to be like the narrator of this whole arc, right? I thought that was a really cool idea because Spinner's he's just a lizard, man. You know what I mean? Like, how do you have a Quirk Awakening from that? So why not make him the narrator, right? Why not do that, right? So I was kind of bummed that way, and I got a soft spot for Spinner. I don't know. I think he's kind of like a Ninja Turtle. You know what I mean? He's a neat character. But man, Sadman's Parade was amazing. You can't beat that, man. You can't beat it. It's so good.
Especially because Twice is already a likable character. So seeing him overcome his mental barriers, save Toga, and have an awesome moment, and then having every moment of him being incredibly terrifying, making you laugh, the people dancing when they're getting shot by the ice, all of them yelling me. Like, it's just every moment of Sadman's Parade was great there as well. So, and it just opens up so many doors. I mean, we've heard about Quirk Singularity, which we got a couple of snippets on here, but also now seeing that there's these things called Quirk Awakenings, which hadn't really been touched on before. I mean, you could theorize that for all the Class 1A people, for more villains, for even Deku could somehow have a reawakening for Black Whip, or all of his quirks could have a second ability. Like, it opens up so many cool abilities that they didn't explain it. It's like, oh, under extreme circumstances, you could just get more powerful. That was the explanation, and that's all you need, because it opens it up for so many more cool moments in the series without heavy explanation needed.
Yeah, and I think that's what I really like about the way that Horikoshi sets all of this up. There's no like clear rules on quirks, and there's no clear rules on like the awakening, but they're like justified enough, right? Of like, we know enough about quirks to like understand them and have like a broad like a broad baseline, but they're ambiguous enough where you could do weird stuff with them, and you can like take them in interesting places. Because if they got like too heavy into like the rule set of them, I think stuff like this would just break down completely.
Yeah, and like they did that with Monoma earlier this season too. We skipped through Enjoyed Training Arc, but they did not explain Monoma's quirk at all, except that sometimes he has blanks, sometimes it works for a certain amount of time. Like, it doesn't, like, we were asking, like, well, what if he tried using, like, whatever the lizard girl from Class 1B's abilities? Like, we started asking these questions, then they're not technically stockpiling quirks, so would they work? Like, they don't explain that, and that's a good thing. So when Monoma comes back up and he uses the ability we don't expect him to, he can explain it there for 5 seconds and then move on, and we're not going to question it because there's no hard set rules that they're breaking. So yeah, I think Quirk Awakenings go along with that. That's how Horikoshi writes quirks, and it's a good thing he does that because it allows these moments to happen.
Yeah, it would just get boring if you actually had like a rigid like rule set in there. You know what I mean? Like you would feel it coming and you would just know. So I mean, yeah, it would kind of build up the hype of it, but having this unpredictability of like when this quirk is just going to upgrade into something like a crazier version of itself, I think that is just like that is so much better. I love that so much more.
Yeah, and we're not even really talking about Shigaraki much, but obviously the last couple episodes were amazing. His backstory, learning what actually happened with him, and kind of seeing a lot of the parallels to Deku, which is super interesting, kind of makes him a much more deep and kind of developed character, kind of seeing of how he ended up where he is now, but also seeing how much more powerful and terrifying he is with his AoE decay, being able to destroy a single town with his hand. Like, he's truly a good villain to Deku. I mean, up until this point, I wasn't afraid of him. Deku would kick his ass at any moment. Now it feels like it'll be a fight, and it actually feels like Deku's weaker and wouldn't win in the current state, which is always fun because now we have to see Deku kind of going through another training arc, getting more quirks and leveling up.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
So I guess the big question is, out of 3 arcs we just talked through, are we all agreeing on the favorite, or what is each one of your guys' favorite arc?
It's okay. I think it's so tough because like My Villain Academia, obviously it's the best. Obviously it's the best. It has like all these incredible moments that are really, really good. And I think like it's very clear that it's the best arc out of the season, but I also don't want to put down like Joint Training and what it was, because like it's good. It's good. And like people might like chalk it up to being too long, or they might, say that like it's mostly like a filler arc. But I think it's really important for building this world out and setting the tone of the season, because like this season is like the secondary cast, right? It's the secondary cast. It's the everyone who's not a main character gets their moments, and it's just really good.
Which is clearly setting up and introducing a bunch of new characters for something very big next season, which is also very fun to think about.
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, I think with this season especially, man, it's like my villain is like S tier, and then the other 2 are like A tier. You know what I mean? They're right there. I wouldn't put them at the same level, but man, oh man, are they freaking close.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think it has to be My Villain Academia for me. Like I said, so many of the top moments in there. I'd probably put Joint Training second and Endeavor kind of third, just because my favorite moment of the season, one of my favorite moments for the season came out of that arc, but I just don't think it stands up. I think it's too short. Probably that's a good reason why, is that maybe it was expanded out, more happened there, but so much happened in Joint, so much happened in My Villain Academia that when you add it all up, obviously those 2 are just going to kind of overtake it for me. But again, so many great arcs. The entire season was fantastic. And I think kind of before we move over to the awards, you guys just have a couple favorite moments this season. Could be something we talked about expanding on. I mean, obviously we have some of the big ones, but like just a couple random moments that just stuck out to you.
I mean, I think one of my small moments that I really love, I can pick out like anything that Bakugo has done, but I love the QED moment in like the last episode. I don't know, it's just so funny. It's stupid, but it's really funny.
Can you explain what QED is for anyone that doesn't know?
Yeah, so QED is like a Latin phrase. I don't know the exact like the what it stands for, but essentially what it means is like my arguments have like shown this to be true. It's like so like what you do is you set up your like you make your claim and you put all the evidence, and at the end you're like QED because this is all the evidence
Yeah,
to
so
prove
it
my
was like
point
proving
true.
he was strong. Pretty much in the context,
Yes.
it's like, yes, I'm stronger than you, QED, and that's
Yes.
kind of what it is because now he's going to learn flow, which Baku says Yara can do. So I think that was a fantastic moment. I mean, I think honestly, obviously an honorable mention is Eerie with the giant like berserk sword. Like that
Oh my
God.
was so much fun. We use it like in the title card for like 3 videos. So I mean, that was super cool and such a fun moment. I don't know. There's just too many to even think about.
I really did like every part of the season of Mina just teasing Araka, and she would just get like incredibly red. I don't know.
Yeah.
I really like that dynamic. Like it just I like the friendship that they have and like the fun teasing. Like it makes it feel like an actual like class at like a school somewhere because it's I don't know. I really like those moments.
It's man, and like honestly, like it's so early on. So like I mean, I found we forgot about it, but all the Shinzo love at the beginning.
Oh, that's
like,
true.
dude,
We were
Shinzo,
obsessed with Shinzo the first couple.
love
episodes.
Shinzo, man. Shinzo is such a good character. I love him to death. Anytime that guy's on the screen, it immediately like wins me over. Shinzo, big fan, huge fan.
No, I completely agree. I mean, there's so many more moments. We actually kind of have a couple of kind of awards coming up. We'll talk about more moments, but any last little things you guys want to call kind of as honorable mentions?
I think like one of the big moments is obviously like all like I want to say all of Shigaraki's like origin, but the specific like sequence of where it starts with his dog and like things are like everything he's touching is crumbling around him, his entire family. That like I think it was like a 5-minute segment. Just incredible. Like that might be like one of my favorite scenes in My Hero by far.
I didn't think My Hero would be something that would make the list of like they killed the dog, but like they did, man.
Yeah.
And it was like I remember
They killed everyone, not just the
they
dog.
killed everyone, man. But like it started with the dog, you know, like you just like you knew as soon as that happened, you're like, shit's getting bad, man. It's getting real bad, right? So like when that happened, it was just like, oh my god, like it was so good.
Oh my god, and we didn't even talk about like Aizawa and show like that whole kind of arc there. Yeah, Aizawa
Jesus.
Oboro, like learning all about that, which was ridiculous. Like there's so, and even when Mount Lady came in, they kind of did like the like interview practice too. Super small 1 episode thing, but a lot of funny moments in there, going over names and all that. Like there's just moments that I'm just kind of coming to my head right now that are all great. There's too many to talk about all in 1 episode.
Oh, I have another one that you guys absolutely forgot about and haven't thought about it until I'm going to say it. Ready? It was Vlad King. It was Vlad King doing the announcements for it. I love that gag so much.
And then every single time Class 1A would say no bias announcing. Yes, that was honestly great too. Joint training had a lot more moments. I think it's been so long. We would be talking a lot more about joint training if it wasn't months ago, I think. I think there's a lot of little moments in there we're just not even thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think with that, let's kind of move into a couple of awards. So a couple of these, we voted on them. A couple more kind of meme awards that allow each one of these guys to kind of announce their own awards. But so we have a couple of group awards where each one of us got 1 vote. We kind of talked about it, kind of totally metagamed it. Spent half an hour yesterday talking about what we actually thought each one of the answers were. So of course, you guys put your own answers kind of in the stage chat if you're watching live. But the first one, which Dylan came up with, Dylan, set the stage. What's the category? What are some of the options? What were the final vote?
So the category is saddest backstory because this season was the season that just made us cry. Every single moment, it was just incredibly sad. So some of the backstories I think are very sad are Twice's backstory, Toga's backstory, Shigaraki's backstory, and not just one backstory, but the trio that was Aizawa, Mike, and Kurogiri, also known as Oboro.
And I don't think this is going to be a popular answer. I think
No,
we kind
it
of
won't be.
talked ourselves into this because we kind of argued it Like we really metagame this, so I think a lot of you are going to disagree with this.
Metagame it?
But Dylan, I kind of regret my answer here. But what did we pick for this category?
The winner for this was Aizawa Mike and Oboro / Kurogiri being the most tragic. And I think the reason why we personally think it is the most tragic is because we read Vigilantes. Read Vigilantes, everyone.
Yeah,
Everyone listening to this,
read
please.
it right now.
Please read
Because
Vigilantes.
It expands. Like, I think we talked about it because it's not just Kurogiri's backstory, but it's what Aizawa saw and had to go through. It's what Mike saw and had to go through. That would be like one of the three of Baku, Deku, and Todoroki dying. Like, if you lost one of those three, I mean, that would be tragic to either one of the other backstories and where they are now. And now having a second chance at saving him and actually getting information out of him. Such a tense episode that it was bigger than just Kurogiri's backstory, which is why I think we did it, but also read Vigilantes because it has like 30 chapters focusing on these three, and it's fantastic.
And I think the moment that really got it for me, and I think it kind of got everyone, is after Aizawa, his quirk is activated, his eyes are opening, and he's like using on Kurogiri, and like when he just like can't use like his quirk anymore, and he closes his eyes, and you see the tears, and it's like from both like using the quirk and also because he is just heartbroken at this moment. Like, oh man, like,
yeah.
It's incredible. An incredibly sad scene.
Yeah,
I think the thing that really hammers down into me is that he's still there. That's like there's like the idea of some sort of like redemption or bringing him out of it or something like that. Like I think that just gets me in the gut even more. Is that like there's that flicker of like, oh my god, he's still in that vessel, right? So I think that being just there a bit, and then again, like it's Aizawa, you know what I mean? Like anything tied to Aizawa, anything. This guy, like he's a colder dude, and now you're finding out why. Like, I mean, oh my god, man, it's a lot.
Yeah, but all right, James, let's move into the next category.
All right, yeah. So my category that I put out for everybody was the best animated fight. So as we all know, there was a ton of fighting in this season. But this, basically, I set it up to the boys, and we basically picked it out of all of them. So we have match 3 from the joint training arc, Shigaraki versus Redestro, the Endeavor Agency versus the group of villains they have to fight with the messed up gear and all that fun stuff, and then Sad Man's Parade twice versus everybody. So this actually did take a little bit of talking about too. Like we went over this a good amount of time because originally I pitched it as not just like match 3 as a whole, but Tetsu versus Todoroki. And then we realized, wait a second, that whole match just has like chaos in it the entire time. And that's the one we went with. We went with joint training arc. We went with match 3 because it was gorgeous. It was insane. You got to see this crazy breaking point between Tetsu and Todoroki. And you got to see Ida at like full friggin' power. You got to see Mudman, who we were so excited about. We loved Mudman. And just a little personal touch for me, I got to see Shoji fight some people, and I love watching Shoji fight. So it was, but that was, I think it was a bit like a difficult one to kind of for us to pick.
And I think what helped with it is that the animation for the first 2 fights weren't anything spectacular.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, to start match 3, Ida does the ultimate reciprocal burst, and it is just a beautiful shot. And then from there, the fight just goes uphill, which I think what it is, because it was such a shock compared to everything else around it. The next episode wasn't anything fantastic. First 2 fights weren't, and then Black Whip came in soon after. But with MVA, everything was amazing, so everything kind of blended together into one big fight there. But this stood out in the joint training arc, which is why I had to vote for it.
And I think the really cool thing about this is we talked about it back in the recap. But the reason why like a lot of this fight was so interesting is because they had one of their special animators on it. So they had, I think his name is Yutaka Nakamura. And so like his iconic thing is the cubes. So if you watch like the beginning of Ida's fight, you see the cubes. That's like his animation. He's like one of the best fight animators of all time. So they basically have brought him out for like all like the blockbuster ones. So same person that did Deku versus Bakugo 2. Obviously one of the best fights in My Hero. And I think that's what really solidifies this as being incredible. It's like his work on the animation, because he is an absolute legend at animating fight scenes.
And you can see it, man. You can see it. Like I don't usually. I'm not a big rewatcher. Like I watch it and I'm like, okay, sick. But the Tetsu Todoroki standoff, I went back to that so many times because it's like not only is it like well animated, but it is moving. It is powerful, and like I love seeing Class 1B get any sort of recognition. And Tetsu is such a character that like for anybody who has listened to us previously, we stand the shit out of Tetsu. Like we love this guy, mainly because he takes such a one-dimensional quirk and just makes it so much better than it is. You know what I mean? Him and Kirishima both do it so well, and of course that is because of Horikoshi's like great writing. But like I mean, it's just man, like I don't know, Tetsu just hits different. It's great.
And all right, for the last actual kind of category that we did was going to be the best Quirk Awakening. So we included Deku in this with Black Whip, but then the other ones were Toga, Shigaraki, and Twice. And I felt like this was pretty much a unanimous vote. I mean, I think while all three the other ones were great, I mean, Toga. I mean,
easily.
I'm not even going to set up context. I mean, it is crazy because that, to us, felt like it was a completely different quirk. I mean, one, being transformed into someone is a quirk on its own, but being able to use those quirks, we never thought that kind of step for her would have been possible. So seeing it and kind of opening up that idea blew it out of the water.
Yeah, because I mean, like we kind of talked about Quirk Awakenings a little bit before this, but like when that happens and like you see the flash of like gravity, you're like, no, there's no way. Is this a real thing? And like I don't know, just seeing them drop from the sky and like all the blood comes up is just insanely cool.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was that addition of not only is she using this quirk, but she just killed a bunch of people with it. Like that's the most Toga ass villain Quirk Awakening thing you can do. Like you can't beat that, right? I mean, Shiggy, like don't get me wrong, Shigaraki was great. Sadman's Parade, we like praised it upon like no end. But man, it was just Toga's just hit different. It just hit different.
So yeah, I think just fantastic all around. I mean, everything about Toga was perfect. So I think from there, let's move into the kind of Dylan, the funny kind of awards that we each have, which leads with you, which you call the Rent-Free Award.
Yes. So the first funny award I want to give out is the Rent-Free Award. This goes to the character who cannot leave my mind. The one that just stays there, and every day when I wake up, I think about them, and I don't know why. I don't know why they're stuck in my head. And the Rent-Free Award, of course, goes none other to the mushroom, to that damn mushroom, Shimeji, aka Kinoko. I don't know why. She's such a cool character. I like her quirk is super cool. I like her design. I like the mushroom dress. And also she has a wide knowledge of all different types of mushrooms. Very cool.
She almost killed somebody too, man. Like
she almost killed somebody by putting a mushroom in their throat, which is horrifying.
It's twisted, man. It's twisted. Oh my god.
All right, James, what do you got for your Drip Award?
Yeah, so for anybody who doesn't know me, I'm a bit of a hype beast. I'm a big like streetwear kind of like fashion guy. So of course I had to give the best drip award away. And this is somebody who, they have like a good costume design, or they look sick and they just exude like looking killer. And it's, what, usually it's you actually, like I almost defaulted to Mina because she always has like these bomb outfits. Toga with her coat was really good too, but it went to Shigaraki. I had to give it to Shigaraki at the end, in the throne with the big coat. Like he just had a look on him, man. He was so all cool. Bandaged up. Yeah, he looked mean, dude. So yeah, Shigaraki won it for sure.
Not only did he have the drip though, but he had the stance too. Just the way that he was sitting like an absolute king.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This was the guy who just inherited an army and knew it. Like he was down for it, man.
He was ready for it. And I guess I'll lead into it, which is what was the best Bakugo, or the best Bakugo moment of the season. And there's a lot. Don't get me wrong. And I want to kind of call out the runner-up first because it's a funnier one. The first one's actually just a great moment. But Bakugo showed up to the Todoroki household, told them all off to take their family drama elsewhere or don't invite people over for dinner when they're going to have issues. And then still got Fuyumi's
Fuyumi.
phone number at the
Fuyumi,
end when
yeah.
they left. I mean, like, this man came in, dominated the Todoroki household, and then left. I mean, that is a fantastic moment overall. But in a more serious moment, how he showed up for the joint training arc and that complete character change for him that no one expected to see is going to be one of my favorite Bakugo moments forever. Him showing up, someone working with his team, showing how dominant he is, but also showing that he actually can change the person, which a lot of people never thought he would be able to. Takes it for me. I mean, it's just... Bakugo lives in my head. Bakugo would have been my rent-free character for this season.
He was the embodiment, and they talked about this briefly in the episode. He was the embodiment of saving people through victory. He wasn't saving people through victory. He was in there to do a job. He got it done, and he did it in the most like him way possible. Like you can't get a better moment than that. You can't.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, everything in season 5 was fantastic. We agree with that? I mean, I don't want to give us official ranking, but this was a great season. We loved it. I mean, there were issues with it here and there, but every season of My Hero Academia has its issues with it. So, despite all the changing around and all that, it's totally worth it, and I cannot wait for season 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to like rank them like objectively against the other seasons because of like the recency bias, but I don't know. This was a good one. It was a really good one.
Yeah, I want to go back and rewatch it after this episode now. Like I cannot wait. I cannot get enough My Hero Academia. But sadly, a couple things before we do wrap up the original episode. So we're wrapping up, but for anyone that is here live, stick around. We will be doing kind of a Q&A video afterwards. So we're going to wrap this up and then move over to that. So if you are here for that, stick along. We'll keep doing that right afterwards. But I want to talk for one quick second about what we're doing during the off season. So obviously, we've been doing the recaps for the last 25 weeks, and that is coming to an end now. So we will be kind of moving over to more topic-by-topic videos. I mean, we still are going to have a bunch of manga recaps and all that on YouTube, but for the actual podcast feed, we're going to be going back to kind of a topic-like episode where we'll be doing fan fiction episodes, where we'll go back and read fan fictions again like we did last off-season. We'll be doing character deep dives. We'll be doing arc reviews. We'll be doing kind of whatever we want. So if you guys have ideas for what do you want us to talk about during the off-season, it is going to be a long time till season 6, so we have a lot of videos coming out. So whatever you want us to talk about, we are down for it, but it will be moving bi-weekly for the actual podcast. Make sure to go to youtube.com/class1a for a bunch of other videos. We will still be doing the same amount of content each month, but we're just going to be pulling back on the podcast so that when we do put out these topic videos, that they are great and that they are as quality as we want, because they're a little harder to schedule and come up with without the recap. So we will still be here. You can check us out bi-weekly for the podcast during the off season, but on YouTube, each and every week, we'll have 3 or 4 videos at a minimum that you can watch. It will all be about My Hero Academia, so make sure to check that out. But with that, I want to thank everyone for listening to this season 5 wrap up and for enjoying season 5 with us. It's been an amazing one. 25 episodes now, kind of recapping all of it, and it was a fantastic one. So thank you everyone that went along with us on the journey for season 5. Thank you everyone here that is watching live as we wrap up season 5. It has been fantastic, and we've loved every moment of it. So thank you so much for always supporting the podcast, for making it so much fun for us, and we cannot wait for season 6. And we hope you guys enjoy the off season and everything we have for you guys as well. So thank you all so much. We will see you 2 weeks from now on Saturday as always. But thank you all, and always remember, Go Plus Ultra.